We got a little problem here. Hey everybody, this is Justin with KARMAkaze Moto. So I'm a little bit annoyed that the battery in the Himalayan is completely dead. This is despite the fact that I had the battery hooked up to a maintenance charger all winter long. So I've got a new battery. I'm going to share that with everybody, and it's kind of special. So due to a number of reasons, I think if the battery lasts a long time, I may be able to chalk it up as probably one of the best modifications you could do to your Himalayan. So we're going to get into this. I'll show the whole battery removal and install, and I'll talk about this new battery. It is a lithium type battery. This here, a little bit of damage, scratches, a little gouging in the plastic, and this reddish paint, which looks like it'll buff out. That was damage from that earthquake. And then on the Bandit fell over against the bumper of the Jeep that's back there, and so the plastic bumper rubbed onto the frame. I think that'll buff out. There's a little bit of a scuff right here. The whole bike needs to be kind of clean and washed up anyway, but it's not too bad, you know, not that big of a deal. And on the Himalayan, I guess, you know, that's one less thing that I got to worry about. If I scratch it, it doesn't matter. It's already scratched, I guess. So, and that's it. Just wanted to say thanks to everybody for checking on me during the earthquake and show you, you know, what kind of damage had actually happened to the bike. So first I'm going to talk about a couple of the tools that you're going to need, and then I'm also going to do a little test to see if there are any parasitic draws on the battery with my current setup. So this is the kit that comes with your bike. Should be strapped underneath the pillion seat, and I've got this all ready. So you just want to grab this Allen wrench here, and that's for these right here. So you need one of those. And I'll set that back in this little tray, which is kind of handy. And you're also going to need a regular Phillips screwdriver, and that's for the actual battery, positive and negative screws. And then you will also need, underneath here, a 10 millimeter wrench or socket. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this right here. It's this little, it's made specifically for motorcycling. It's a Motion Pro MP tool, so it's a metric multi-purpose tool. And in here is a little gadget, basically a wrench. You can grab out some other attachments. Hopefully you can see this well. What I'm going to do here is pop this attachment in, and then you can put your 10 millimeter socket on here. And then this side of the tool can snap in. And there's a couple different ways that it can actually go in, because you can put a screwdriver on this end. Anyway, the reason why I'm pulling this out and using it is I'm going to be carrying this with me when I travel. So I want to use this tool as much as possible for a couple of reasons. First, I want to know what all will this tool do for me on this bike. And the other thing, the more I use this, the more I can, you know, find out if it's going to fail on me. I don't want to be, you know, 200 miles into the wilderness and then this tool breaks and I really need it. So I'm going to use it as much as possible. So you'll see it in some future videos probably, and I may even do a rundown of just the tool and show how many things you can actually work on this bike with this. So here's this 10 millimeter socket, which is also in this little case. Here's some of the other, you know, screwdriver attachments. I'll set that out of the way as well. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Again, I'll put a link in the video description if somebody wants to purchase this. Let's get into testing for a parasitic draw on the battery. I'll show you how that's done. Now, to check the parasitic draw on the battery, if there is any, what we're going to do here is switch this over to DC 10 amps. We're going to see if there's any amperage being drawn, and I need to pull this. This is my model. I have to pull this out and get it stuck over here. Okay, and I'm going to pull out the negative screw here and get things kind of disconnected. This one right here is for like a battery tender or a jump starter cable. So the dealership in Seattle, they they put this on so that you'd have this right when you left the showroom floor. You already had something to kind of help you with the battery. So that's that one. This one leads up to a 12-volt outlet, which is on my handlebar. And this one right here is for a, I don't know, more of like a 5-volt USB outlet. Okay, we're gonna check and see if I've got a any sort of parasitic draw on the battery from just the Himalayan itself. No accessories, just all stock equipment, stock electronics. We'll check and see if there's a draw. I did this a moment ago, so I already know what's going on, but my GoPro camera had a problem, so I got to kind of start over here. So let's see, just to reiterate, the negative ground cable is detached from the battery. I've got my multimeter or multimeter, depending on how you pronounce it, on. I've got it set to DC 10 amps. I've got my leads connected in the proper place, and we're going to see if anything about the bike is drawing any amperage through this meter. Now, the only way you can do that then, of course, is to use your leads and see if any current will go from the ground to the battery, or vice versa. So I've got the negative lead here touching the battery terminal, negative post, and the bike is off. And when I touch the ground, it's at 0. It took a second to figure out what was going on. Probably just some residual power that was in line somewhere. So we're at 0, so there's no draw. This is really great. This is exactly what you would want to see. So when you turn your Himalayan off with stock equipment, there's no drain on the battery. That's great. You would then expect that the bike is always going to start later on. Of course, that's not the case for me. Now, what I want to do is check if there's a draw when I turn the key on, which, of course, because there's a headlight that turns on every time you turn the key on. So watch this. A lot, okay? A lot of power is going through there. I didn't want to do it too long. I don't want to damage anything, but the headlight came on, the fuel pump kicked on. Okay, so that was with the key on. We're gonna go back to the off position because we're only concerned about when the bike is totally off. And the next thing I'll check is one of my accessories. So I'm going to do this one right here. This is my 12-volt outlet up on the left handlebar, and with that 12-volt outlet is also a USB port. So what I'm going to do is set that right here on the ground. I've still got my negative touching the battery there. I'll try to hold this up so that you can see what's happening. The bike is off. There shouldn't be any draw, really. You see I got this 0.01. So that particular device, the USB outlet, excuse me, the 12-volt outlet and the USB port combined, does have a very, very nominal draw. My understanding is that this kind of draw, or even a little more, is pretty normal for bikes, which is why you do need to keep the battery on a maintenance charger. But what I do find interesting about this is that I had no draw with just the Himalayan, and now I do have a little bit of a draw with that device. So there you have it. You know, I had a tiny nominal amount of draw, but nothing that should really drain the battery down so quickly or ruin the battery, that's for sure. But anyway, it's there, so now we know. And let's test the USB port. Okay, now this is for the USB port. I think it's a Bike Master brand single USB port, which is up on the right side, or kind of near the steering stem on my bike. I've got to get myself some slack here, and we'll see. Again, we're back to 0. We got to try to touch these together, and nothing. So that USB doesn't draw anything. So I've got one power outlet that draws nothing when the bike is off. I've got another one that does draw a little bit even when the bike is off, and the bike itself draws nothing. So none of that is drastic. It shouldn't be causing me any problems, but now it's good to know that that one device does draw a little bit. Let's kick this off, and then our next thing is to get into pulling this battery out so that I can get the new battery in, and I'll tell you a little bit about that new battery. Don't want to scratch that gas tank, so be careful. And this one, the lower forward little bolt, that's just for looks really, so that everything looks nice and balanced. Down there, the panel just pops out. So you can see there's a little nub there, and there's a rubber grommet. In order to pull the battery out, primarily you got two things that need to happen. This bolt needs to be pulled out because there's a bracket here that holds the battery firmly in place, and also your positive and negative wires need to be disconnected from the battery. You do need to get these wires and things out of the way. So we've got this one right here. It's just on a little metal tab, so just kind of rotate it, and it's all just rubber, you know, so you can pull it pretty hard and get that lifted out of the way. See, there's just that little groove there. And then we've got this little relay, looks like in here. Let's get that out of the way. Now we'll get this little bolts out. You only need to pull out this front one. This bracket, it goes back, push it back, and then pull it out. See, there's a groove here, a tab and a groove. It slips over like a plastic tab that's back here, so you can leave this bolt alone. Okay, the negative, the ground wire here has another wire that comes off and goes into this plug. I think it's best to just get this pulled out of the way, and in order to do that, you need to undo that plug. Okay, get that unplugged. I've already been in here to do things, so I can tell you that the battery, it kind of like just barely fits in. See how the battery box is kind of like got a curve to the plastic? Well, that's putting pressure on the battery, pushing it back. So when you go to pull the battery out, this corner hits the frame. What I found is that if you're able to get the battery out and then tip the bottom up, plus push against this plastic, and leaving that bolt in there might help you. You pull that plastic over, you'll be able to get the battery over enough and tilt it up enough to then come out. If that makes sense anyway, it'll help you out when you go to do it. Okay, slide it out a little bit, cock the bottom up, push it forward. See how that's flexing forward there? And see I'm hitting the frame? And just push it out the rest of the way and it'll go. And then you do the reverse, but you're gonna have to get this plastic, you know, push forward when you go to put it back in. Okay, so in the US, at least my bike, or the 2018 model, it comes with this Varta Power Sports AGM battery. So it's AGM, that's really cool. You know, nothing's gonna leak if it gets tipped over. It's low maintenance. Of course, mine has failed. It takes a charge, but it doesn't actually have enough amperage or cranking amps to do anything with the bike. Well, at least it's distributed by a company in Milwaukee. I don't know where they actually get the battery made from, because I would think that where it's manufactured and the distributor could be two different things. Let me give you a little bit of details about this, because it'll help you compare. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this very well. Let me get the brightness cranked up. Okay, so I'm just looking at the details online, and the main thing I wanted to show was that, well, voltage, 12 volts, cold cranking amps, really important when you go to buy a new battery, especially if you buy a new battery that's like a different size or something unique. The cranking amps is important. So this one, the cranking amps is 120 amps. And, well, the other thing on here, the overall capacity of the battery, you know, basically how much power is in that thing. Well, it's rated at 8 amp hours. Now, this is all important because I'm going to show you the battery that I'm replacing this one with, and some of the details are a little bit different. Some are better, some are seemingly worse, but not really. I'll tell you why. So let's take a look at the new battery. This is an anti-gravity battery. It's a lithium. This is sort of their newer stuff that they're producing, or the newer battery styles that Antigravity are producing. It's got this restart feature. You know, like intelligent technology. Everything now is like technology, new technology. Anyway, basically what happens is if the battery is sensing that it's getting too low, like for instance, if there's a parasitic draw on the battery, it will shut itself off. Pretty awesome. And then there's a button on the battery that you can turn the battery on when you want. and it'll give you enough power supposedly to start your bike, they say, a few times. So the battery is supposed to never go dead. Okay, so this model is the ATZ-7. Okay, so this battery has 7 amp hours. This one had 8 amp hours. So the battery in full has less power stored inside the battery. I didn't need all that power. Nobody needs to drain the whole battery down. I didn't need an entire 8 amp hours. You just need the initial burst, which is the cranking amps. Well, this one provides 150. This one only did 120. So this should help me start the bike better, more easily. Especially with the headlight on the Himalayan. If you've noticed, when you turn your key on, the headlight is automatically on. So that's already drawing power. Well, this can accommodate a little bit more of a draw and still have more cranking amps left over to start the bike. What's really cool about the anti-gravity is that it has posts on both sides of the battery. So if you needed, well, for instance, me, when I go to stick it in the bike, I needed positive over here, so I can just turn it around. And here's the button. So again, this battery, if it starts getting too low, it'll shut itself off. And then later when you go to start your bike, if you can tell that there's no power, just pop your seat, push this button, it'll turn the battery back on, and you can start your bike up. Pretty awesome. So we got the size difference. Well, I'm looking forward to having a little bit of extra storage room. And then this is a lot lighter than this clunky thing. I haven't put it on a scale yet, but you know, this weighs a few pounds, and this feels like nothing. In fact, when I got the box in my mailbox, when it got delivered, I grabbed the box and I thought there was no way it was this battery. I thought that they shipped me something wrong, and I opened it up and here's this battery in there. It's super light. I mean, just there's no weight to it whatsoever. So you get size savings, you get weight savings, you get a feature that keeps your bike from going fully dead. And these are the reasons why I think this might be one of the best modifications you could do to your Himalayan, especially if you're going to be riding out in remote areas. They've got really nice hardware, and they provide enough for both posts. So you're actually getting 4 nuts, 4 washers, and 4 of the screws. And the only other thing in the box is this, which mainly just talks about safety and charging lithiums and all that. And speaking of charging, let's talk about that real quick. In order to use a lithium battery, you need a special lithium charger. This happens to be a model that I have. I already had this because this will charge standard lead acid filled batteries or the AGM batteries. It will also do lithium. So let me get it a little closer here. It's a Genius brand. It's the Megaboost 1.1 amps. You see it's got some mounting holes here where you could just like screw this onto your wall or your workbench, so you could, you know, roll your bike into the garage and then hook this up and use it as a battery maintenance charger. So this is the one that I used all winter long, and it still didn't help that battery at all. And then you'll see here it'll do a standard battery, 12 volts. There it says right there AGM, or you can go to lithium, 12 volts right there. I'll provide a link to this charger as well as this battery in the description of the video. I already had this battery out. I've already fully charged it. It definitely took a few hours, but I had my leads hooked up. It charged up fully to 100%, and so I'm ready to put that battery in my bike. Okay, let's see what kind of space we have to work with here. Got the anti-gravity lithium battery. Well, I tell you, I'll just fit it to one corner so you can see. We have tons of space, which is really cool. I've got about 1.5 inches here. Got about, well, I guess almost about 3/4 to the side of the battery. Or I could put some foam behind the battery and slide the battery forward. I like the idea of having the battery back because that means back here I can access the terminals a little bit better. And I think what I'd like to do is just keep this space on the front. I'm really not sure what I would put in there, but I will come up with something that's handy. It's just important to remember that you want to keep this button accessible. You know, you can mount these batteries on their sides, you know, depending on what you want to do, but you want to be able to access this button. So I'll make sure I, you know, put the battery in just as similar to stock. And I think what I should do right now is just get the battery connected and test it up. You know, I can even, well, I'll get this box cleaned out, but I can put foam underneath and to the rear, you know, and behind the battery at a later time. The foam, by the way, Antigravity, they sell their own foam that you use to pad and fit, you know, smaller batteries into place. I may buy their foam, I may just get something else. There's padding, stock padding, on each face of the battery except underneath, which I find that kind of interesting. So there even would have been, there's a rubber grommet that sits on this side of the battery when that bracket goes on. So there's kind of like some foam padding everywhere except underneath. And what I'll do first is connect the bike up without any accessories connected. We'll test it out and then connect the accessories. This is really tall, so when you go to put the screw in, you'll be sure to catch some threads. Let's put we'll put a little piece of tape on here, that way that doesn't ever slip out. It can't go back in, there's a piece of plastic, but I'll get some tape on there. It's just a little tiny bit to keep it from going anywhere. On that side, okay, that was just lightly snug. Get it back in there, and then you can't forget, got this other black wire that needs to be connected back. These guards are really annoying. It's like they're always in the way. They don't flex enough. It definitely doesn't work great once you have accessories, because there's other cables in the way. And then what you have to do is cut, you know, notch some of the plastic out to fit around the accessory wires. But, well, and then let's do this. I'll get the camera looking up at the dash. Okay, so our first test. All right, we've got power. I heard the fuel pump kick in. I need to, it's kind of chilly out here, so I need the choke, but I need to hold the camera at the same time. So I guess I'll just try to start it without choke, and we'll see what happens here. Oh, that was awesome, because the bike hasn't been run in days and it's chilly out, and that's with no choke, so pretty cool. Okay, awesome. So the battery totally started the bike, which you would expect, but it's always good to test it before finishing up. What can I say? Nothing much. It's going good. So what I'll do is get the accessories hooked up and close everything up. I'm going to do the foam inserts at a later date, and you know, maybe I'll do a follow-up then at that time. Tell you what, it sure is nice to have all this room to work with and position the wires. Yeah, a lot of play in there, so I definitely have to get something back here, you know, to keep the battery fitted tight. I will take care of that before I start riding the bike around. Right now, I just want to get everything kind of put away and get back in the garage. So if you didn't make note when you did this the first time, the negative ground gets down and kind of just tucked underneath and back out of the way. This one right here slips onto this tab right here. Just like so. This whole area just kind of sits right here behind the panel, and that's why I was mentioning earlier that, you know, these wires push the panel out. So if you tuck these wires in better, your panel won't be bowing out away from the frame. Oops. And this, you know, this slot right here goes over this tab right here. Okay, now that's not going anywhere. Okay, now, yeah, you see this? This, these are all areas that are pushing against that side panel. So, that's how it came stock, and I'm not a fan. It may wear through. It's getting flattened. This isn't going to wear through, but this may. This is for the brake light switch. And it's just the first outside coating. The wires are coated too, so it would be a long time before you had a problem, but I don't really like that. I think it'd be better if this wire was behind this main one. Let's see if I can do that right now. Okay, put that behind there. I think you'll be doing yourself a favor if you do that. Do yourself a favor, get one of these, you know, get it connected to your battery so that you can keep your battery charged without taking your seat off. And so I've got that connected up now, and I can use this with the Genius brand Megaboost charger here because it has an SAE connection. So I roll the bike into the garage, get this connected up, and then that's all I got to do. I don't have to worry about it. Keep everything charged up. Hey, I've got some good news. I was cleaning the garage and I came across this. It is the foam that you can actually get from anti-gravity batteries. It's kind of dense. It's a sealed cell foam, so it won't take on water. Shouldn't rot away too quickly. And it's got a paper back here that you can peel. That way you can stick the foam anywhere you need it. So it's actually been a while since I did the installation of the battery in the Himalayan. I've actually done the Himalayan review since that time, but since I found this, I wanted to make sure that I finished it off correctly, get some good padding in there, and show that in the video. And then I think I know what I'm going to do with my extra space in the battery box. So let's get into it, and we'll talk about that in a second. I've got the foam in place. It was nice and easy. Didn't take too long to figure out what I wanted to do. I used a fish fillet knife to cut it, and my suggestion is to get the knife on there and do a nice long draw while you push down. That way you get pretty even cuts and you don't have to saw back and forth. You can kind of see some of my saw marks, but it doesn't really matter. And this stuff is going to be really good padding. So my goal was to give it good padding, but not be so thick as to waste too much space. I wanted to keep the battery up high. That way the terminals are a little bit more accessible up on top of the battery. And let me set this in here so I can tell you what my plans are. I think I'm gonna coil up some zip ties, roll them up and put them underneath there. And then this space, I'll get like a piece of dowel rod and do my own roll of duct tape to stick in there. And also I can fit JB Weld back in there. Of course, you need both bottles for that. So those are things that you don't expect to need, of course. You may, but hardly ever. So I'll stick them in there and just kind of forget about them, but I won't have to pack them in my toolkit or my luggage, bags, anything like that. So that should be pretty handy and a good use of the space. Now, if you really like what I'm doing here and you want to copy exactly what I'm doing, I will... Hey, those are nice. That's what they're supposed to do. Grab right on there. I'll give you some measurements so you can duplicate what I've got going on here. This piece down here, if we could get focused, it's like 11 or 12 millimeters. This one over here is roughly 8 millimeters thick. Do we all like metric? Yes, we do. Okay, and then I don't know, it's like 7 millimeters, something like that. This was the thinnest piece. I hope you're gonna like this. I think because this battery has terminals on both sides. Originally, it's like this, and the positive is on this end, but that is the space right here. It's the skinniest space as compared to this. It's bigger. Where the oh, let me show you here. You saw it already, where this is at. But then when it's up in there and you got the wiring on top, you can't hardly get this thing off. I think I may actually turn this around the other way. and connect the positive on the other side so that everything's easier to get to. And this is long enough to come over to that side. The way this works, see how I've got kind of a funky shape there now? Well, if you want the terminal to go on in this direction, obviously I got to get it through, but if it's going to sit this way, this original hole on this side was too far over here, so I had to get a hole over to that side. It's not going to hurt anything, especially it's just a ground anyway. So I'll be able to get it in there and get it down on the terminal on this side. And then the positive cable, there is plenty of slack here, especially once all these wires are up in place. Now this one's fine. That's going to fit in there just fine. What I want to do though, this little tab right here, so it's kind of off on an angle, I'm going to bend that in a little bit more, because what I don't want to do is put all this effort into having foam, but then you've got something like this tab, which is hard on hard vibrating. Now the cord itself is going to be rubbing a little bit, but of course the cord is flexible, so not a big deal. This bracket which goes on, it had a grommet, a big rubber grommet here, so that on the inside there was a big rubber round donut that pushed against the original battery. Well, it's not needed anymore, but I did need foam to press against, so that's my foam piece there, and I decided to go with a full thickness of foam. It's all complete and looking pretty good. I said before that I had that full piece of foam right there for this bracket, so in between the bracket and the battery, and I said this wasn't bowed out, so that is the case. That's going to help with some of this stuff was pushing against the side panel and pushing the side panel away from the frame, so that'll help with that. The other thing that's going to help with that, probably more than anything, see the positive cable here and how it was worn? It was really pushing against the side panel. Well, now I have that cable, like all the extra slack in that cable is nice and neat and pulled back a little further, because with this battery I was able to flip it around and put the positive on that side. You can see easily what I was talking about before, where this cover, when it was underneath the wires here, you just couldn't get in here and you couldn't lift it up. This was in the way. Well, now I can flip that up and access the positive side really easy. Okay, so just as I suspected, I alleviated the gap along here because there's not a bunch of pressure behind the panel. You can see I've got some easy flexibility there. So that worked out good. And just one real quick point here I wanted to make, that having this positive cable run over top of the negative terminal, that is definitely not, good practice. But the sheath on here, whatever, this protective hose, it's really thick. And I'm going to get the seat put on, and in a second I'll show a couple gadgets that I'm going to install next. So the battery worked out pretty good. I've already ridden with it. I haven't had any problems at all. I've had it on a maintenance charger, but then I took it off the charger for a few days and the bike still fired up. I actually was using this new Lithium-Ion battery when I did the Himalayan review. Like I said a moment ago, I've got a couple other things to get installed on the bike. Well, actually, I got a bunch of stuff that I need to get installed, but as far as just like little electronic components, this is one of them. This is the front, but you're not gonna probably make out what that brand name is. I have no idea. I can't tell you. I can tell you though that the item itself seems like kind of a fairly good quality for the price too. It's 20 some bucks. This is what it is basically right here, if you can see that. It's a replacement 12-volt outlet for me, but it also has a digital voltage meter to tell me what the battery voltage is, so I can stay on top of the battery. And it's got a couple of USB ports. Both of them are 2.1 amps, so I can charge things up pretty quick. And like I said, I've already kind of checked it out. It's better quality. When I have and it has an on-off switch. That's a really cool feature, I think, and it's waterproof. So there's absolutely zero draw on the battery, whereas my other one has a little weird parasitic draw. This one has none. So stay tuned. I'm gonna get this on. We'll do some tests, and I'll show it up close a little bit more. And the other item from Moto Power It is another USB port. Now for me, I've got the phone, multiple cameras to charge, possibly even my laptop, which, believe it or not, will charge off of a USB-C, line. So this is another dual USB port. Moto power, 2 ports there. And the cool thing about this, again, like the 12-volt outlet, you can turn it on and off. So better items, less chance of causing damage or wearing the battery down. Ooh, it's probably really loud. And anyway, that's why I got them. So maybe in the next video here, I know I've got to get these things on. I've got a chain oiler to get installed. That's going to be really cool. And we're going to do a giveaway for that. And I also have the pannier racks to go on there. So stay tuned. And if this one helped you out or you thought it was interesting, then certainly like the video. If you want to be informed of what's going on with the future videos and the future rides. I've already done one. I just got to get everything edited together. Then by all means, subscribe, click the notification icon. And until I see you again, have fun and enjoy the ride.